What made this year's track difficult, I think it was pretty much more in line with what happened last year, because I think more people were asking questions. We wonder what the leaders or the organizers of this trek are going. What are they going to do differently this year? So there was a lot of uncertainty about how it was going to work, and that was way before we even got to the technical and the physical side of the climb. There was a lot of pressure from the climbers themselves, from myself as the leader of the whole thing. And then obviously we are very grateful that we went out and came back with an incident-free climb this year, but it was very difficult, tough for the climbers. I want to say that they did fare well though, because realizing last year that training proper for this mountain is very much needed for anybody that goes. So we started having about a number of programs, training programs, trips to the Drakensberg, trips to the Sekkerbosrand Nature Reserve. So we felt very pleased that everyone else that decided to join us this year was fully prepared and physically and mentally ready to take up this challenge, and they did.
I'm going to ask you a little bit more about some of the exertions as well as the training. Very interesting that based on last year, you changed your approach a little bit as team leaders. And there's quite a little more I'd like to get into on that. I want to check with you, Richard. You've been up the mountain? You didn't go this time around.
No, not this time. Yeah.
How many times have you been up?
5 times and summited 4 times. So since 2012, 2013, 14, 15, and then 2016 and 17, I didn't, well, last year I didn't summit because of what happened, but this year I went to say to them, you know,
tell us a bit more. You didn't summit last year because of the incident that involved Gugu Zulu.
The late Gugu Zulu, yes. I mean, Sibusiso will explain later, but just to give you an idea, when he started, you know, not feeling well at base camp, a decision was made at about 8:30 that he goes down. So I just decided, because Letseho was going to go down with him, I just decided, let me just go with him, with her as well. So just to give her the moral support. Yes. We left base camp at 8:30 at night, and then we got to the hospital. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. So it was quite. It just tells you how long the journey is, and yes, it was extremely difficult. So even though I didn't summit, but you know, it doesn't mean that, you know, there was no hard work put into it. So actually, it was.
I don't think anybody doubts that at all, because we really at length went into it last year for all of us, because we were all shocked. Yes. Gugu Zulu is an athlete in his prime, and he was a practicing athlete. He wasn't a weekend warrior like a lot of us are. Coming back to you, Sibusiso, with regards to the training and getting ready for this, what are we talking about? Yes, you mentioned you went to Sekkerbosrand, more tracks, you had more time that you spent on making sure that the mindset was right, that the physicality was up for it. Yet, at certain points, it seemed as if looking at hearing what Gillian and the rest of the climbers are saying, it seemed that it was touch and go at some points for some of them, in terms of like whether they can actually physically carry on, or whether they need to stay and wait for you to come back or to go back themselves.
On the mountain itself, it's different really. The training won't help you when you're on the mountain. That's why in my way of helping people, I say to them, you need to train way before you're on the mountain, because when you're up there, it's a different ball game altogether. And people tend to mislead themselves that, okay, I'll just I'll train very little, and then I'll get onto the mountain and see how it goes. And those are the people that tends to find it really near impossible to climb this mountain, because of the physicality of the mountain itself, and then as well as having to battle with the high altitude. We know that the higher you go, the less oxygen you get, and that has got a negative effect and impact on how you perform. So yes, it is true that when you get onto the mountain, people just behave differently, and there are many things that will probably stand in your way wanting to defeat you. And it does get to a stage for some people where it is not about how well prepared you are, how physically fit you are. It is just your body's ability to adapt to the high altitude. You can be the fittest person in the group, but if your body says, no, I can't cope here, then there's nothing that you can do. As a result of that, we as the leaders are called to action, where we will say the best way for you, unfortunately, is to go down. So it happened again this year. Everybody had trained very well. No one had just missed any of the training sessions we did. But we arrived at the base of this mountain. We had to tell others to go down, because we felt that they could not cope going higher. They were disappointed, but we said rather safe than sorry, because we knew that they wouldn't cope. It was just the high altitude and their body unable to take it up. And that was when we were about 4,700 meters. We are going to 5,895. Would have taken them another 1,000 meters to climb, and definitely they won't have been able to climb down safely by themselves.
Right now we're looking at, we just saw visuals that are of the climb itself. It seems like it's all done in the dark, pitch dark. Richard, you mentioned a lot of the times that all you can see really is just the torches from the guys in front of you, and all you hear is shuffling, and you're really just trusting in what's happening around you. When you went up for the first time, all your faith, of course, and your team leader, as well as people who've done it before you. Tell me what was going through your mind when you were doing that final ascent in the dark.
Look, you know, when you go with this guy, firstly, he doesn't entertain questions, because you know, you get there, you're like, at the back of your mind, you're thinking, why are we spending like 5 days? Because we can see the summit is there. Why don't you just go up? And then, so he then told me that, no, you don't focus on anything but on the next step. So obviously it was very difficult for me, because I was so looking forward to, you know, getting that selfie on top of Kili, which I had to wait for 5 days. So it was really, really difficult. But and his way of leading enables people to settle down, because if you don't settle down and like take it in, you tend to then have false expectations, because then you just, all you want is to see yourself up on the mountain, and it doesn't work that way. So it was a very difficult climb for me the first time. But trusting him, I just decided that I'm going to, you know, cool down and wait for those 5 days to come through. And in fact, it was even more, because we took a different route, a longer route. So it was about 8 days on the mountain. So it was difficult for me, but eventually I got there. Then I realized what he meant by saying, you never ask about tomorrow. We focus on today, we finish today, and then we go to sleep, and then we wake up to focus on the next day. So that was the approach, and as they will say it in Kiswahili, pole pole. So it's slowly, slowly, and you take every day as it comes.
Very interesting. You talk about routes. I love what you just said right now. You talk about routes. You guys took the Marangu route. There's several different routes to go up and down. You took the Marangu route, and one of the things that I thought was very interesting was in what you described about, you know, there's certain things. It almost seems like you're talking about acclimatization. That's why something that you can do right now, you take a bit longer to allow the body to react and adapt. Did you take the Marangu route last year when you were with Gugu, or are you doing it the same route again?
We've taken exactly the same route since we started the trek. So every year we do exactly the same route, Marangu route, all the time.
So we've got a little graphic that shows the route itself and some of the stops on the way. Where are the danger areas? Because I can imagine there's certain points where, you know what, if your body is not adapting, it's not going to adapt again after that. Where on this track, on this route, would one say, look, you know, this is where we expect to have dangers for people?
We start from the gate, and then we climb up to Mandara Hut, which is the first hut, and that is through the rainforest. And then the second hut will be a hut we call Horombo, which is then beyond the rainforest. But I wouldn't say where specifically are the dangers or the danger zones of it, because it depends from one person to another person. And that's the challenge with high altitude. And people don't understand that one person won't cope from when we leave the gate to going to the first hut, which is Mandara 2740. Like what is happening with me. And then we nature that. But it's okay if we pick that early, because we can tell the person how to discipline themselves to sort of not to overexert and how to cope with that. And then we will monitor them. And others will still fall off, actually, even at the second hut, which is Horombo hut, which is also not that high. But then, the biggest of them all, and with Marangu route, I want to be open to everybody that if they will be reading on the internet, it is nicknamed Coca-Cola route. And that somehow gives the impression that it is the easiest route. Now, this is the most toughest route you can ever do, in my view, because the first three camps, going to them, it feels like it is easy, it is plain sailing, you're not feeling much, you're not feeling okay. And then I said to my guys this year, don't be misled, because when you get to that Kibo hut at 4-7, things will change, because suddenly, physically, the mountain looks different than it has been the last few days. So it is deceiving. And then I tell you, your body becomes shocked, and your mind is like, how am I going to cope with this? But the biggest for us to make a call whether a person will cope is when we get to 4.7, because pretty much higher than that, there's nothing that will happen. That's Kibo Hut.
Well,
they put it at 4.6, but it is 4.7. It doesn't matter. It's not much. But that is our summit camp. Yes. That is where we mount the attack to go to 5895. And from there on, physically, the mountain looks different.
Yes.
The first section of it is a loose scree where every step you take, you're just shuffling along. You will just take one step and slide down because it is so loose. And then the second phase of that is very steep zigzags, and people can't climb any other way. You can't climb straight up. You just need to do the zigzags. After the zigzags, which go for a long, long time, then you will hit a rocky section, and that is where most people just give up. So they push through these rocky sections, which they scramble, they're really crawling on all fours, and they get to what we call Gilman's Point, which is our first target point that we try and build into the people's minds so that they have something that to focus to before the summit. And when Gilman's Point, that's where most people then have expended so much energy that when they get there, they say, I can't go. Then most of them get to that section. And the second that will be what we call Stellar Point, at about 4.7. You've only got about 100 meters to go to get to 4895. And that is where every dreams get shattered. Wow. It is just the physicality, the change of the physicality of the mountain from there. And that is where we need to monitor health of people, how they're coping. And then if I see anything that I realize they won't make it, that's when then I tell them, please, you need to start to make your way down.
Sibusiso, you know what, I can imagine that after the tragedy from last year, you would have definitely revisited some of your processes, streamlined them, tweaked them, and got them to the point they're more efficient, I suppose, than you thought they needed to be, or you might have thought you were efficient already. And sometimes tragedy does that, bring into clear focus some of the gaps that we didn't know existed. However, you've brought everybody back safely.
Yes. Yes, we have, and we're not going to take all the credit to it. It was just a matter of just being resilient. We've always run the expeditions in a much more professional manner, and as I did say to many people, we are not going to change anything. The one thing we did though was this time around we had to bring in a doctor who was to help me monitor the situation and make the right call, and that was the biggest change. Other than that, everything else we played it as we've done it the previous years as well.
Sibusiso and Richard, thank you so much for coming through. Really appreciate the time you've given us. Everything pole. Focus on today. And I think this is the way to do it. And thanks very much for coming through. And congratulations.
Thank you very much for having us.
Let me just say thank you so much to SABC for keeping everyone abreast and all our media partners on the expedition. We really appreciate it.
Now, there we have it. We've got TREK4MANDELA, the climbers are back. And what a mission, what a campaign they've put on for everybody caring for young women in and around Africa. That's where we leave it for today. Be sure to join us again tomorrow morning on Newsroom.